Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring an era of football that literally defies logic. We aren't just looking at a great player, we're breaking down the absolute terrifying dominance of Lionel Messi during his ultimate peak, from 2011 to 2015. We're going to look at how he evolved tactically, how he shattered records that stood for decades, and how he completely transformed into the ultimate offensive weapon.
But before we zoom into that specific peak, let's just start with a staggering number: 46. That's the total number of team trophies Messi has won throughout his career. It officially establishes him as the most decorated player in the entire history of the sport. We're talking Champions Leagues, La Liga titles, Copa Americas, and of course, that World Cup. He quite literally completed football.
And alongside those team trophies, a record 8 Ballon d'Or titles. He didn't just win occasionally. He hoarded the title of the best player in the world across 3 entirely different decades. This unmatched individual legacy is the perfect baseline to establish before we really zoom in.
Just to cap off this baseline of greatness, take a look at this massive number: 474 La Liga goals. He's the league's all-time leading goal scorer, achieving this in just 520 appearances. For context, that's a level of domestic dominance that literally no one else even comes close to. So, with this unbelievable baseline set, how did he actually do it? How did he reach a level where these absurd numbers just became his everyday reality? Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. 1. The ultimate football resume. 2. Unlocking the false 9. 3. 2012, the goal-scoring freak. 4. Evolution to the flank. And 5. The MSN Trouble triumph. Section 1. The ultimate football resume. To truly appreciate the surgical breakdown of his prime we're about to do, we've got to look at the sheer scale of the resume he built over his entire career. When you look at his major lifetime milestones, the density of these wins is just absurd. 4 Champions Leagues, 10 La Liga titles, and that crowning World Cup victory, not to mention the 46 team trophies and 8 Ballon d'Ors we already touched on. But here's why we're here today. While his career spans way over 2 decades, the engine of this unprecedented success, his absolute, terrifying, ultimate peak, was forged specifically between 2011 and 2015. Section 2. Unlocking the false 9. So, what actually triggered this peak? Well, it all comes back to a tactical revolution. It comes back to the arrival of Pep Guardiola as Barcelona's manager in 2008, a watershed moment that unlocked Messi's first true evolutionary leap on the pitch. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds. Messi debuted in 2004 as this scrawny, brilliant inverted winger out on the right, cutting inside to use his pace in dribbling. But in 2008, Guardiola moved him centrally to the false 9. And later, as we'll see, by 2014 he shifted back out to the right wing. Each of these positional shifts unlocked a completely new level of dominance. So what exactly is this false 9 role? Basically, it's a center forward who purposely drops away from the front line and deep into the midfield. Tactically, this presented an absolutely impossible conundrum for opposition teams. If the opposing center backs followed Messi into the midfield, they'd leave massive gaps behind them for wingers to run into. But if they stayed back to protect the space, Messi had all the time and freedom in the world to turn, face the defense, and just run at them with the ball glued to his foot. It was literally checkmate before the game even began.
Section 3. 2012. The goal-scoring freak. This incredible tactical freedom allowed him to dictate games perfectly, and it eventually culminated in a climax the sport had never seen before.
Now, what's really interesting about this month-by-month breakdown in 2012 is the sheer staggering volume. Look at this: 7 goals in January, 10 in February, and an absolutely mind-boggling 13 goals in March alone. Aside from the July offseason, he rarely dropped below a goal a game. It's a statistical anomaly that honestly still defies belief.
When the dust settled on 2012, the final tally was 91 goals in just 69 games. Let that sink in for a second. He shattered Gerd Muller's seemingly unbeatable 1972 record of 85 goals in a calendar year, a record that had stood untouched for 4 decades. He achieved this by averaging a goal every 66 minutes he was on the pitch. And perhaps the most telling thing about his positioning as a false 9, 78 of those 91 goals came from inside the penalty area. He was heavily involved in the build-up, sure, but he was absolutely lethal in the box.
Broadening the lens just a bit to see how he physically achieved these staggering volumes, the breakdown of his 474 La Liga goals is super fascinating. A massive 394 were scored with his left foot, only 63 with his right, and 17 headers. Think about that. Everyone in the stadium, especially the defenders, knew exactly what he wanted to do, shift the ball to his dominant left foot. But the terrifying reality was that even knowing exactly what was coming, nobody could stop it.
Section 4, Evolution to the Flank. But football is a game of constant adaptation. Just when opponents thought they might finally be figuring out how to crowd that central space and limit the false nine, Luis Enrique arrived as manager in 2014. And that sparked a brilliant, completely distinct second peak.
Comparing these two distinct versions side by side, we see a fascinating evolution. In 2012, he was the false nine, playing centrally, acting as the ultimate main goal threat. But by 2015, under Enrique, he moved back out to the right wing. Except he wasn't just an inverted winger anymore. He would constantly drift centrally to shoot or play intricate combinations. Moving back to the wing actually made him a much more involved, dynamic, and dangerous playmaker, firing on all cylinders with his passing and his vision.
Section 5, the MSN Treble Triumph. Now this shift wasn't just about Messi, it was entirely about the players around him. The focus shifts from his sheer individual volume to absolute team supremacy. He formed the legendary South American trio alongside Luis Suarez and Neymar Jr. Their combined stats from the 2014-15 season are just jaw-dropping: 122 combined goals and 55 combined assists. Together, they won the historic treble: La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Champions League. But what made MSN the greatest attacking forward line of all time was their almost telepathic connection. There was zero ego. They willingly sacrificed individual numbers for the team and found pure, raw joy in celebrating each other's goals.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real magic of this era. Even while sharing the spotlight and sacrificing for his teammates, his individual stats still break your screen. In that 2014-15 season, Messi recorded 58 goals and 27 assists in just 57 appearances. He was directly contributing to well over a goal a game, perfectly balancing his lethal finishing with his unmatched creative playmaking.
So, the crucial point is this. When we look at Lionel Messi's ultimate prime from 2011 to 2015, we're actually looking at two completely different masterpieces. We have the 2012 version, the false nine, a walking, breathing, goal-scoring machine that broke a 40-year-old record, and then we have the 2015 version, playing off the right flank, operating as arguably the most complete offensive player in the entire history of the sport.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, and one I want to leave you to debate. When looking at this legendary prime, what defines his status as the absolute GOAT? Is it the sheer, unrepeatable statistical madness of scoring 91 goals in a single calendar year? Or is it the 2015 treble where he evolved his game to become the ultimate playmaker and the greatest attacking trio ever assembled? It's an impossible debate, but that's exactly what makes analyzing his career so incredibly fun. Thanks for joining me on this Explain